Deconstructing the Financial Maze, the Parasitage Banking. Full interview with Francisco Alvarez. www.youtube.com weblink FEATURE equals PLAYDREMBEDDD and V equals RMAUTCPR. The former vice president of the stock Paris explains the nonsense of the current financial system. The markets are not left to rule by governments. Public money that banks obtain don't arrive to the corporates, and the governments issue debt very expensive to pay previous debts. Today there is no financial crisis or the bankers themselves, with uniformity of action in international collusion which involves an agreement between the cusps of all high level of their hierarchies which are necessarily interconnected and following the same overall plan. International have decided, agreed and implemented a shutdown of the credit for individuals and businesses, and a referral or change its lending alternative to loans to states, preferably those who are in crisis which just roll in the hole, which can apply a interest 16% as is the case in Greece, getting it at European Central Bank to only 1%, with the securing their profit by constitutional laws and intercommunity agreements, shielding and terminating these operations to ensure their lucrative business with clauses inserted in the Treaty on European Union Article 104 of Treaty on European Union 92, C 191/1, Article 123 of the Treaty of Lisbon and, recently, modifying constitutional clauses of the Constitution of the States themselves by entering the security of your payment as budgetary stability clauses involving the preference in their collection the repayment of these loans made to states and regional communities and their interests. Their attitude implies a breach of its obligation to lend credit to citizenship, global agreements understanding of all banks at the international level restricting in collusion to bank competition and to impair the economic and industrial tissue of all countries, with absolute and front of the slightest breach of rules, laws, regulations and economic practices antitrust, and with breach of public utility of credit delegate function improperly and inadequately, which they owe to citizenship and states. Consequently, the only solution is recover the state's credit public service function given by the state, of old, to the banks, because it is being exercised by them all, internationally, on behalf of the state and abroad community, at the profit of states and the economy of each country, and causing massive global economic crisis. Such recovery passes by release of the government of each country exercising at the same time the executive and legislative functions of the political leaders, which themselves are the same indirect and secret representatives of banking institutions, both being found in perfect symbiotic relationship for mutual assurance of its existence, so that one should feed back to the other so that both still exist, positioned, funded and catapulted to each government for these, through democratic voting system, financing and controlling electorally all media in his favor, and restricting, thus, the access to any other candidates to chosens, as representatives of citizenship that could change the political banking system established, since the dawn of time. Consequently, today, each representative of each government is a representative of the international banks funded by an arm of these a local bank. And they never will act against someone who to him placed on the government position, clinging to this office for mandatory instructions of his financier and promoter, which is due, and whose financier understands that its survival is due to control of each government, so that the economic and financial system remains, as is currently regulated. Once released, as a function of replacement fed the bank as an institution with corresponding weak the state, the community, the original recipient of financial nutrition, as public utility function of its nutritive breastfeed phagocytic leech dominator operator sucking vampire weakening parasitivity current, as a function exercised by bank institutions and forcing them to comply with their credit and financial functions, via the nationalization of its social function of public financial as education or health or function of public police. The financial system is automatically cleaned up, together with the recovery of state domination function of issuing its own currency to pay its own budget debts without constitutionally imposed financial intermediaries that suffocate the regular observance of its financial obligations, as a sovereign state by nature in the international sphere. Being the ECB or the U.S. Federal Reserve institutions at which each state has given them their own exclusive right to issue currency to blur, obscure and overshadow and control in their own favor, as particularly unique state-owned function. benefiting as well, international banking financial institutions that have placed at the head of each government politicians who then helped them to consolidate this status quo of financial and currency issuer. It's being understood that money and the power to issue currency control totally to power its access and exercise, rather it to that. The recovery of the financial and currency issue capacity of the state authority not can be direct and immediate, but through an awareness campaign for the recovery of their own government for the same citizenship, releasing it from the delusions of democratic systems whose representative citizens in their governments is prevented by the control of individual and collective freedoms, for control of the ballot count, the police function that prevents the expression of public opinion, control of the media, propaganda and opinion, and control of own economic, financial, social, family system, and custom programmed, in general,